You could be wiser as an educated advisor. Hello everyone, I'm Steve Savant, syndicated financial columnist and money color commentator. On today's show, Financial Misconduct and Evidence, part 4 of our series on best practices for financial professionals with attorney Ilya Lirma. All here on Let's Get Down to Business. Welcome to the fourth segment, Ilya.
Hi, Steve.
Hi to you, and I want you to know that painfully, as I've said earlier, we should not fear attorneys, right? But usually when they call, there's not, you're doing a good job. I haven't got too many clients calling and say, great job, Steve. You know what I mean? So usually there's a fear of God moment, and you panic and you go, who should I put on retainer, right? I mean, your knee-jerk reaction. But when I'm looking at evidence, I never know what real evidence is. And if we don't have any documentation, this is the argument against it. If I don't have any documentation, it's just my word against that person's word. But is it really an arbitration?
Well, especially now when you're not really aware of what the client may have in terms of their documentation. You may not have any documentation, but they may have a couple of ambiguous emails that supports their version of the conversations or events as they transpired. And you, without your documentation, because you thought that was going to help you, ends up being the plan that backfires, especially in this day and age of electronic storage of information. It's so easy for potential victims to go back through emails, turn up documents, download from servers, emails that are several years old. I've done it in a number of cases. I've gone back, as we talked about in the past segment, downloaded text messages. We've gotten audio files from voice messages. All of that documentation of communication is going to end up being evidence. And if you've only got one side coming from the client, you're going to wish that you had implemented better documentation practices.
Okay, so I'm looking at evidence, anything, there could be stuff that my client has that I don't have, and that could be a problem. And the flip side of that is if I'm a client and I'm feeling I've been wronged, I'm going to start looking through my documents. Before I call anybody, hey, do I have evidence? Do I have emails? Do I have text? Do I have voicemail here? I keep a lot of my voicemails for a long time until my voicemail tells me, hey, you're 98% full. Then I start deleting the lower end, and the stuff I can't delete for conscience sake, I put into a WAV file. So I save it just because I want the communication to be right. Now, when I'm looking at evidence, especially when you're talking about financial abuse, I mean, I don't know what that means, financial abuse. Was the product I sold the client suitable? That's the first, in our area, that's the first question your broker-dealer is going to ask. Was that a suitable call?
Well, and again, going back to what we discussed in the first segment, is suitability isn't always the standard that's going to apply. As you raised, the standard in your industry is evolving, and now you're talking about fiduciary obligations. So suitability doesn't necessarily rise to those fiduciary obligations of higher honesty and duties of disclosure and putting the client first before your own interests. So those two aren't necessarily the same standard. So I think you'd be wise to not just use suitability as your only analysis. When you're talking about financial abuse, you're usually talking about exploitation. And exploitation is defined by the relationship between the parties. And if the relationship is between professional and layperson, and the professional is taking advantage, they are no longer putting the client first, they're putting their own financial interests first. They may be churning, they may be trying to incur transactional fees for their own benefit. And when you see that kind of self-serving conduct at the expense of someone in the relationship who doesn't have as much power, because they don't understand or because they don't have the same access as the professional, that's when you start to get into claims of abuse and exploitation.
I was looking at a case the other day where we looked at, and I don't want to get into the weeds on it, but basically we looked at the products that were put on the table. We finally came to a decision, this product is the one that will work for the client, for their goals. They understand the risks involved, and we put it all on the table. But the compensation wasn't very good on the option that we wanted to give the client. It was really good for the client, but it wasn't really great for the advisor. So there was a little argument and a discussion. They went forward with the other plan that was not as good for the client, the numbers. And I was involved in the hearing of this, right? Because I sat there and I said, listen, this is clearly the better deal. Okay, when we went, and I'm called in and said, Steve, what was discussed in that meeting? I had to discuss everything, and since they caught us on our show, I said that was the better product. Now we got a real problem because I'm involved now, and I had to say, we told you to sell the client this, and you sold this. When you have third-party outside people, right, like myself, just happen to be in this one because I get called in once in a while, this is really damaging to your practice because guys like me are never going to have you on the show again. You're not going to be writing any credible blogs or articles online. Your tweets are meaningless. Nobody's going to come to your website anymore. You're going to be anathema to 90% of the people like myself who really want to try to do the good thing for the client. So you were talking about relationships. I outsourced it. Here's another one. I want to get to. I outsourced this to this other person. What am I liable on the food chain of events? Because I knew this was not my area of expertise. This guy holds himself out. He seems to have credibility. He came with references. I gave my client, outsourced it to this person, and this all went down.
Well, it certainly gives you that heart attack moment, right? Yeah. I mean, that's unfortunately the reality. But if you've been diligent, if you've been reasonable in terms of vetting the people that you use for referrals, and they came with recommendations, and you'd have no reason to know, even through a reasonable search. It doesn't mean you have to do an exhaustive search. You don't have to do a background check on every single person that you're referring. But if you, if the referral comes from a source perhaps you don't know, and you've made some kind of effort to vet the referral source or the potential referral, then you've done your job, and most attorneys are going to be able to see that there's not going to be a viable claim there. Now, everybody has these overwhelming fears that the attorney's going to come after anybody who is in line and touch the potential claim, and that means more insurance, and that's really a myth. I mean, the truth is that a good attorney is going to focus on the really negligent parties. There's going to be, if there's a viable claim there, that's where you want to concentrate it, because every party that you include after that has their own attorney. They have their own shot at your client at deposition. There's 3 defense counsel at their table and 1 at ours, and that's not really where we want to go. So if you've comported yourself professionally, you have been reasonable and diligent in terms of carrying out your responsibilities, then you really have nothing to worry about. That's the time when you may have your 15 seconds of panic, but you can kind of come back and say, wait a minute, I know what I did. I spoke to this person, I looked this person up, this guy's licensed, and so I really have nothing to worry about. And your attorney will be able to assure you if it gets that far.
And again, if you're a consumer watching this, one of the biggest things I go to right away is I go to broker check. You can see if there's any bad boy language in the records. You can go to the Department of Insurance, see if they're in good standing with the department. There's a few things you can do, and it don't take long. I mean, you can be in and out of the internet here in 10 minutes. The other issues too is sometimes people are very disclosing. I don't think they mean to be, but they're writing their bio, and you're on LinkedIn and you're going, oh my gosh, there is so much fodder. Sometimes I see bios that I'm thinking I'd pull that down in a heartbeat.
I definitely see that
and
too,
you've seen this.
But that serves me, so I don't.
I know it helps you out, right?
It absolutely helps.
Right.
Us.
So I'd be really concerned. We talked about this in the first segment. I'm holding myself out as an expert in a certain field. Well, boy, you better be able to prove that. And when getting back to the outsource, I'm outsourcing a person. I'm looking at that. Hey, our broker check, Department of Insurance. Oh, and if it's a fiduciary, like a CPA, an attorney, maybe a trust officer. So they're related to us, but not really directly. And I'm looking at those people. I have to remember, where did I get the referral from? How do I know about this person? So I want to be very good about this. And if you're a consumer, you need to be doing a little background check yourself. And if you're saying, I don't know if I'm skilled enough or I'm kind of getting out of my ears, have your bennies do it. I mean, this is a very important thing. You need to have people that are going to be your family fiduciary, quarterbacking your financial needs. You need to make sure you're good with these people.
Absolutely.
All right, I want to talk about last thing. I want to talk about social media. Oh my gosh, I just touched on this in LinkedIn. How bad is it, man? I'm all over Facebook, LinkedIn, you name it. I am. And I'm thinking, boy, when I first met you, I started trimming stuff back.
Well, anymore, in terms of self-promotion and getting the right clients into your office, you have to have a face out in social media. It's the reality. The trick is to not make promises that you can't keep, to be cautious about the kinds of slogans that you may be identified with. Let's say, for instance, they take a business slogan for, we make money where it matters, and they hold that up. Some attorney like me in a civil claim is holding that up in front of a jury. is that going to be the theme of the attorney's case, your slogan? And that could potentially backfire. That can be harmful. So I think it's very important to balance the interest of promoting yourself, but also being reasonable in terms of carrying that out, and also having a personal touch. Again, that communication with your clients. When you're just the money guy, nobody ever sees you, the business is running through all of your underlings, and you're the person who gets sued when something goes wrong, it looks bad when you haven't been involved, when you haven't been personally managing, when you've been deferring phone calls to everyone else, when you haven't even met this client. So those can be problematic for you if you're holding yourself out as these terrific producers. That may be good for you for bringing business in, but it can be it can backtrack and backfire if you're trying to defend a claim. And so those are the things you really have to be on the lookout for.
Well, I can totally see that you need to be more involved than just being the rainmaker for your firm. You need to be in the operational issues and kind of knowing, and you have to trust your people you're hiring. Are they going to really be your representative, especially the one you just scared me on, which I haven't even met the client. Listen, don't forget to watch our next segment on financial elder abuse and fraud, part 5 of our best practices series for financial professionals. And keep in mind, before moving forward with any of the ideas on the show, always check with your tax consultant, legal counsel, or compliance officer. And don't forget to subscribe to my consumer show, Steve Savant's Money, the name of the game, daily content that you can post on your website, social media accounts, and database distribution. I'm Steve Savant. Thanks for watching.